So I just wanted to come on today and share a little bit of advice that might help you through your dark night of the soul. So around 5 years ago, I went through a really long dark night of the soul, and there's a lot that I've learned from that period and some things that I just wanted to pass on that might help you if you're going through something similar. So just to put this in context, I had a period in my life, so it started around 2019, where a lot in my life changed and crumbled. I went through really big life events and probably about everyone that you can imagine in a very short period of time. And this really pulled the rug from under my feet. And I went into a very long, dark period. So my physical health suffered, my mental health suffered. Um, at that point, I'd labelled it very much as a breakdown, which I essentially was going through. Um, and it was only really sort of later on through that period that I started to realise it was something a bit more than that. And it was really when I started to get more what I would call mystical experiences and things happening in meditation and things changing in my life. Um, and seeing the transformation in myself as well, that I realised there was something um, more going on here that I needed to understand and unpick. And that's then really what led me to understand now what I went through as a dark night of the soul. And because I've been through so much transformation along that time, I'm completely a different person now. Um, and I don't want to go into too much detail around that period because I have done a separate video on that, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of context because it was a really long period. I mean, I'm talking years that I was in that state, I suppose. So um, I wasn't even functioning. So I was very much at crisis point. And this may be triggering to some people, but I very much didn't want to be here anymore because I just couldn't see any hope. And that's really what's brought me to do this video, because at that time, A, I didn't really know what I was going through, but B, I couldn't find anything that matched what I was going through at that time. And I would have loved to have heard from somebody who had gone through that really dark period of time, and to also have seen how they've transformed and come out of it, because that was really the piece that I was missing. I was very much stuck into grief and despair, all those sort of lower vibrational feelings. And I very much got paralyzed there. I got stuck there for a very long time. And I just really wanted some hope, somebody inspiring that I could go, oh my gosh, they got through that awful time. And I don't want to go on about it, but I'm just trying to make a point that it really was crisis point. I wasn't functioning at all, physically, mentally, or spiritually. So people talk about choice points in their life where people might have a near-death experience, or there's be a chance for them to go if they so wish. And I think that could have been one of my points, but I did persevere, and it took a tremendous amount of strength, is all I can say. And thanks to my parents as well for helping me through that period. So I don't want to go on about it too much more, because I want to be able to give you some advice that you can take away today if you're really struggling at the moment. So I have got some notes here because the way my head works, my brain jumps all over the place. So this is just to keep me on track. So number one point that I want to get across today is this is a time or period where you're really going to have to put yourself first. And it took me a long time to realize this, but once I did, things started to shift. So this is going to be uncomfortable, because this means saying no to people or letting people down, or you might feel that you're letting people down because you're not used to it. So I had to take a period of time off work. So that didn't necessarily go down very well at work, but it's something that I had to do because at the time I wasn't physically functioning. I wasn't even sleeping. So I just couldn't physically function. My brain wasn't operating. I had zero energy. Another thing I had to do for myself is, and is all part of the process actually, is start to go inwards and isolate, essentially. So I just didn't have the energy to go out and socialise anyway, because I had nothing left to give. but B, I needed time to rest and get through that period. So this is going to be about starting to develop your boundaries, saying no. You are probably going to upset people, and at that time you've just got to say to yourself, I may upset people, but once I'm better, I can then go back and deal with it. In the meantime, you can just explain to people you're going through a really tough time at the moment and you just need some space to process and go through what you're going through, because that isolation point is very necessary and it's all part of the process. And I'm here to tell you it's completely normal. But people aren't necessarily going to get that, because if they haven't experienced it, they're not going to understand. So now's the time to make your health and your peace of mind number one in your life. And once I started to do that, I started to see very, very small steps of improvement. So mine was a very, very long dark night of the soul. So it was very, very small, and it'd be sometimes a step forward and a step back. But I think if I'd maybe done that a little bit quicker, I might have got through it a little bit quicker. So that was the first thing I wanted to pass on, was putting yourself first, even if that makes you unpopular at the moment. Remember, as time goes on, you can go back and maybe explain, if those people are still in your life, of course. But at this moment in time, your priority is yourself and getting yourself through this process, because it definitely is a process. Number two, this feeds into the next point, is about letting relationships go. So totally normal for people to fall out of your life. Mine started just before that, I would say, because I was going through some changes anyway. But people are naturally going to fall away. And I also, another thing I want to say to you is start to really recognize how you feel when you're with people during this period as well, because things are going to start to show up, and you'll notice as time goes on, things like your intuition are going to start to heighten as well. And I started to notice, I was already feeling awful anyway, but say if I did meet a friend for an hour just for a walk, I'd always look at how I felt afterwards. So if I was feeling more depleted and even worse than I was, I knew that I needed to spend less time with that particular person. So really start listening to your body as well around other people, because you're going to need to maintain your reserves and put all your energy into healing yourself essentially over this time. Number three was getting outside and in nature and with animals. That was the most healing thing I did out of anything, bar maybe meditation. I mean, it was around 2020 anyway, so we weren't really meeting up and we were outdoors walking. And that was the time when I just fell in love with this type of thing. Being in nature, being outdoors. And, you know, even if I was having the worst day, it helped improve it even just a slight bit. So say if I hadn't slept the night before and I felt like absolute death, I did have to force myself sometimes, but just going out, even just for half an hour's walk, made all the difference. And the other thing was my connection to animals. So I've always loved animals, but I think at that time, animals are so uncomplicated and unconditionally loving, and that is really definitely something you're going to need in your life around this period. So you know, if you're not an animal person, that's fine, but if you are, I'd encourage you to just go out into nature, see what animals you can see along the way. At the time, I'd also lost my dog, and I'm a massive dog lover. And I really deeply grieved him. I just thought it was the worst time for him to have left me, you know, during this time. But so I had to go and find animal love elsewhere, and that actually got me into my love of horses. I was out on my nature walks, had some, where I'd moved to at that point, there was some horses there. And I then developed a bit of a relationship with them, and I'd go and see them every day. And then eventually they'd recognise me and come over. And sometimes I'd just literally stand with them for an hour. And anybody who has horses knows exactly what I mean. They're very therapeutic, I think, very calming, very peaceful. And it really taught me about just being with another sentient being. And through my lowest times as well, and just sort of sharing that calm space, it was the one time that I actually felt a bit of calmness inside. So I was really struggling with anxiety as well around that point, along with a host of other things. So that's something I would encourage you. And if animals aren't your thing, then just getting out into nature really, really helped make a difference to me. And it's something that I haven't stopped doing since. The fourth thing I'm going to come to is meditation. And I know some of you are probably groaning because it's one of those things that people always talk about, and I probably would have done the same. But what made the difference was that I was so desperate for some peace at that time. I just wanted my health and inner peace. It made me sit down and do it, and it was the best thing I've ever done. So for me at that time, I just wanted to experience some calm and some peace. Self-inquiry is really what got me to go deeper into meditation, and that really flipped a switch for me. And also being consistent with it. I mean, I did do it every day and made it a priority in my life at that time. Little did I know that lots was going to come from that. So where I was just looking for peace at that time, I actually then started to have experiences, which then led to things like seeing shapes, to eventually now getting communication via meditation. And it's one of the things that I just is the best thing that I've got from this dark night of the soul. So if you're going through something now, a really bad time, I'd encourage you to just start doing a little bit of meditation, just 5 to 10 minutes. Because it really is going to help, and it's really going to strengthen your connection to something bigger than you, which is when we're going through tough times, I think we all need that. And it just reminds you that there is something bigger than ourselves out there, which will help to bring some hope as well, as it did to me. And it just then opened up so much more. It was like just the starting board for me, really. And I won't go on because I'll be here for hours, and that's probably a whole other topic, but I definitely encourage you to get into some type of meditation. I remember, if you try it once and it doesn't feel right, there's so many different types of meditation out there. Just go onto YouTube, there's loads of free stuff, and just keep trying different types until you find one that works for you. So very, very important. The next thing is starting to go down a spiritual rabbit hole. So this is something that really helped me at the time. Again, it's kind of this connecting into something bigger than yourself. But I didn't know anything about it. In fact, I was a little bit scared of it before all of this happened in my life. So I just went out and I just read everything I could get my hands on. Listen to loads of stuff on YouTube, and if money's an issue at this moment, as it is for a lot of people, YouTube, loads of free resources, secondhand books as well, some charity shops as well. There's some books that I just felt like I was meant to find there. So definitely go down. I started going down what they call looking into esoteric knowledge about ancient civilizations, about different methods of meditation, inspiring stories as well. So at this time, help lift yourself up by reading inspiring stories. So Michael Singer has some really good books out there called The Surrender Experiment, The Untethered Soul, Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God. I love that book. I remember when it came, I was very much in the middle of my dark night of the soul, but I read that book within 2 days, and I've reread it so many times since. So just go and explore as much information as there is out there on the topic, and get to know and understand what you're going through. So looking at videos like this to understand the process, why it's happening, because it is happening for a reason. So I'd encourage you to really go and investigate all types of spiritual knowledge and investigate the dark night of the soul as well, just to get a bit of understanding and to understand why you might be going through this process as well. So number 6, so one of the things I stopped doing at that time, and I've never gone back to it, is I stopped watching the news completely. So 2020, as you know, was a bit of a grim time for news globally. And then when the war started, I just thought, you know what, I'm not going to watch this anymore. So I switched it off, totally changed my routine. Instead of listening to the news in the morning, I listened to uplifting podcasts. Totally changed my life. Excuse me. Totally changed the content that I watched. I stopped watching anything that made me feel scared or uncomfortable. So any gore, thrillers, anything like that, anything that made me feel tense and just added to how I was feeling, I stopped doing. So I really started to surround myself with knowledge and inspiring stories and things that I was interested in. So number 7, I did have to start changing my life. Now I was at my lowest point and I really didn't have any energy, but without going into a very long story, there were things that I had to do. So I had to move a couple of times because I think I'd made a mistake in where I'd moved to. Because at the time I was still making that decision, I was still very much the old me, and I didn't know what that new me was going to be. So where I moved wasn't right for me. So long story short, I've now moved out to the country. So I had to move a few times in that interim period, which, to be honest, I don't know how I did or had the energy for, but I did. The other thing I had to do was change my job. And again, it was really, really tough. And the place I was currently in, I wasn't happy. It was toxic. It was all falling apart. And then I'd had a period of time off sick as well, which, as you are probably aware, society and workplaces don't really like that. But I needed it. I wasn't functioning, so I needed that time off. But when I went back, it was an even worse situation. So I had to go and find a job, and I found it pretty quickly. And at the time, there was things that big decisions I had to make. But I'm very glad I took the leap of faith because I'm a lot happier where I've been now. And even though it was a little bit risky at the time, I think I was so ill and so fed up, I had to take some action. And it was a much better place for me to go and more aligned with who I am now as well. So there may be some things that you need to change, and it's going to be difficult. You're already might be at a crisis point anyway. So somehow you are going to find the strength to do that. I found the strength to move twice and do all the stuff with the solicitors, which was just really stressful, and change job as well. So if you're facing big changes in your circumstances, then you can find the strength, trust me, from somewhere to make some of those changes that are going to help you in the long run and work towards that new version of yourself that will emerge once you've come out of that dark night of the soul. So the 8th thing I wanted to get across here, and this is something that would have really helped me, and maybe I wouldn't have been stuck in that dark night of the soul for so long if I'd accepted this very early on or realised this very early on. And this is to accept that there's no going back to the old self. That is gone now. And I very much thought, I'm just going to get better. I'm just going to get through this period and go back to how things were. And that's how I was for a very, very long time, probably a year, maybe more than that, maybe a year and a half. I'll get through this period and then go back to that, and I'll go back to that way of being, and then I'll be that person again. And it was actually in a meditation one time that I saw it was like 2 islands splitting and moving further apart, and one had the old me on it and the other one had the new me on, and I was told very much that there's no going back. That is in the past and you're not going to get back there. And actually that trying to get back to who I was in the past was keeping me stuck. And it was only when I realised that things weren't ever going to be the same again, that I started very slowly to move forward. And that took a very, very long time for me to get my head round, and that I was going to be birthing into this new person. Most of us don't birth into something new overnight. So it did take a lot of time, but that's something I really encourage you to do. And it's going to be painful because it also means not going back to the people in your life a lot of the time. And it certainly did for me. A lot of the people from my life before I've left behind. Whether that's intentional, they've just fallen out of my life, or they decided to go out of my life. I can totally see why that's happened now. And it all sort of makes sense. So accept that there's no going back, because once you're going through awakening, there really is no going back. And it's all about evolution and progress, and birthing into something, growing into something else, I suppose, because that is what we're here to do, grow and evolve. And lastly, I just wanted to say, I hope this video just gives you some hope to see somebody stood in front of you that's been really at crisis point, didn't want to be here anymore, been there for a long, long period of time, we're talking years, and has now stood here in front of you today to say, you can do it, you can get through this really tough, tough time. And I really do, I just want to say I really do understand what you're going through. And definitely was my darkest period. And I don't think, if people haven't been through it, they're just not going to understand what you're going through, and how painful it is as well. Losing that old identity. And I would say I grieved it. I really grieved my old identity in life. And I knew there was no going back to it as well. It was really, really painful time. But I just want you to know that there is hope and you can come through it, because there was, I'd say 98% of my time, I didn't think I was going to get through it. But there was like that 2% whisper of, oh, you know, just keep going, just put one foot in front of the, just get through the next 2 hours, just get through today. So I just hope me standing here helps give you the strength to carry on today, and maybe start to look forward on your life journey about where you now want to get to, because you are not going back. You are not going back to the old you. Once you're in the dark night of the soul, you're starting the awakening process, and you're going to come out the other side completely transformed, completely new relationships. You might even move, might be a new job, new everything. I can tell you there's only one last thing in my life that is to go, and I'm working on that going right now. So your life is going to be transformed. So if you're really, really in that crisis point at the moment, definitely do go and get help. So whether that's therapy, because I did go down that route as well. It's very lucky that I found, she's now my life coach. She's been a brilliant mentor and's got me through some really, really dark times. So definitely do go out and get help if you need to. You may need to try different people, because that's something that I had to go and find the right person for me. But think about who you are now going into and how you want your life to look in the future, because you are going to get through it, and the mind is going to tell you you're not going to get through it, as mine did most of the time. But don't believe it, because you absolutely will. If I can do it, you can do it. So I hope that just gives somebody a little bit of advice out there, and most importantly, some hope to carry on and push through the process. Know it's happening for a reason as well. I think that really helps to know that it's a process. What you're going through is actually quite normal within this process, and think about how you want your life to look like on the other side. And I'm going to leave you for today, and thanks for listening. Bye.